Chapter 44. The world was returning to normal, but for me, there was no normal to return to. Normal for me was stolen bread and ditch water. Little by little, I learned about forks and money and toothpaste and toilets. Back in the countryside, I did what I did best. I stole. I snatched everything I could carry. I became my own donkey. I pulled a little cart everywhere I went, and wherever I stopped, I became a carnival. I was so good at stealing, people saw things in my cart that they found nowhere else. And I was cheap. What did I know about prices? By the end of the day, my pocket was only a little less empty than my wagon. But who cared? For I had discovered my voice. I became a huckster like the ones that had fascinated me. Oh, bread for sale, apples, shoes, cigarettes, ladies' undergarments, come and see amazing bargains. For me, it was more about talking than about selling. There had been a few word bursts during and before the ghetto, but up until the end of the war, I had probably not spoken 2,000 words in my life. Now you could not shut me up. If my cart was empty, I kept on hawking just to hear myself talk. I wallowed in words. There was no end to them. They were free for the taking. No one ever chased me down a road yelling, "Stop, thief, he stole my word." Time went by. I talked enough and stole enough and sold enough to buy a steamship ticket, and I joined the multitudes going to America. The immigration officer said, "What's your name?" "Misha Milgram," I said. "What's a Misha?" He said. "Your name is Jack." I became Jack Milgram. I learned English. I went on talking. In America, that means I was a salesman. No one hired me to sell the best products. The problems were my size. I stopped growing at 5 feet 1 inch. My accent, and my missing ear, which now looked like a clump of cauliflower. I couldn't blame them. Who would let such a galoot in the door? "Good day, madam. Can I interest you in a nice vacuum cleaner?" Forget it. Then I got my big break. I was hired to sell a miracle vegetable chopper on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I was given a table and a pile of cucumbers. 10 o'clock in the morning. People gathered in front of me. I began describing the wonders of the miracle chopper. Somebody called, "What you do? Chop your ear off?" Before I was halfway through my spiel, the last person was walking away. I felt desperate. "Wait!" I called. My mouth took over. "There's something I have to tell you. Dr. Korsak was right. There was a cow, and it burned like a marshmallow." The people stopped and turned. They were thinking, what is he talking about? What's that have to do with the miracle chopper? Who cared as long as I was talking? "Himmler looked like my Uncle Shepsel. My Uncle Shepsel looked like a chicken. You want to know what rat tastes like? Rat tastes like mouse. I'm going to warn you one last time. Do not take the horse from the merry-go-round." I told them everything, except for Janina. All that I had seen, all that I was. The boardwalkers streamed by in both directions. Stopped to listen? 3 or 4. Miracle chopper sold? 0. I was fired at the end of the day. But I had found something. Next day, I was back on the boardwalk. No cucumbers, no choppers, just me, standing near a steel pier spouting off. Then one day, I took the bus west to Philadelphia. To earn money for cheap beds and cheap places, I handed out circulars and swept gas stations and shucked oysters, but my real job was running my mouth. If you walked the streets in Philadelphia in those days, you probably heard me. 15th and Market, Broad and Chestnut. You heard me, and you turned. As soon as you realized I was spouting nonsense, you turned away and walked on, muttering to your friend, "Another nutcake." It was on a corner that I met my wife. 13th and Market, a cold day in November. She stopped and listened. That was rare enough. 5 minutes later, she was still there. That was unheard of. Then she left. But she came back with a bag of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor. She offered me one. Her name was Vivian. She came back every day, staying longer and longer, bringing me hot chestnuts. She lured me away from the street corner. Lunch at Horn and Hardart, walks at Riddle House Square, card games in her ground floor apartment. Always, I went on talking, telling my stories. Vivian became my street corner. Vivian was a normal, sensible person, but I think at that time she must have gone a little cuckoo. Maybe my words dazzled her. Maybe she saw me as a needy refugee from the war or an exotic artifact of history. In any case, one day out of the blue, she blurted, "Okay, I'll marry ya." And I thought, did I ask? The marriage lasted 5 months. Vivian quickly found out that living with me was different from playing cards with me. When caroling children came at Christmas time, I slammed the door in their faces. When I saw a copy of Hansel and Gretel in the bookstore window, I went in and grabbed it and ripped it to shreds, and Vivian had to pay for it. In the shower, I sometimes turned on the cold water, but could never stand it until I became blue. I snatched apples from fruit stands, I did strange things at parades, I laughed in the wrong places, I heard flies. Remember Warsaw? What a feast! We were so full of crap we couldn't take off! I cried for no reason. In the night, the colossal black flame-throwing jackboots tramped through my dreams. Finally, Vivian had enough. As she was leaving, I stared at her stomach. "Are you pregnant?" I said. "Goodbye," she said. She closed the door and I went back to street corners. Remember the day you were hurrying by with your briefcase or shopping bag, heading to the parking lot? The one-eared, pint-sized Looney Tune ranting at you? That was me, flapping day after day about Olek and Yuri and Himmler the chicken and Kuba the clown and the crows and the black pearls and my Yellowstone and the food that flew over the wall and the flaming flying cow and the orphans marching and singing, and the man who scrubbed the sidewalk with his beard, and Buffalo's belly, and Dr. Korsak's cozy goatee, and the ladies with white gloves, and cameras, and Greta the horse that never was. They were all a jumble in my head. What a mess they must have been coming out of my mouth. And you? You were the thing that gave me shape. But I wasn't even listening. You say, I don't even remember you. Don't feel bad. The important thing was not that you listened, but that I talked. I can see that now. I was born into craziness. When the whole world turned crazy, I was ready for it. That's how I survived. But when the craziness was over, where did that leave me? On the street corner, that's where. Running in my mouth, spilling myself. And I needed you there. You were the bottle I poured myself into. I branched out. I went to nearby towns that I had never seen a street corner talker. Norristown, Conkoshuckle, Glenside. The years, the words went by. Then, one day in Philadelphia, in the shadow of City Hall, 2 women stopped and listened. They looked to be in their 70s. They wore wide hats that shaded their faces like little parasols. After a while, one of them reached out her hand and cupped my ear clump. She smiled and nodded and said, "We hear you. It's enough. It's over." And they walked on, and I went another way, and I never took to another street corner. When my daughter found me, I was stocking shelves in a bag-and-go market.